If you're struggling with test automation, I've got a thing I want to show you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through why you are struggling to learn test automation and what you can do to stop struggling and start excelling at it. I'm John Ferguson Smart, and I help testers become great agile test automation engineers so that they can have more job security and job satisfaction and feel that they're really making a difference with their teams. And in this video, what I want to do is explain what is really holding you back from learning test automation properly, and more importantly, what you can do about it. When you learn to code, or when you learn to do automation, or when you learn a lot of things, what I find is you tend to follow a series of curves. In test automation, when you're learning test automation, what happens is you start off learning the basics, learning coding languages, learning basic scripting, and that all goes really well at the start. You learn simple stuff, it's easy enough, and then it gets harder and harder, and eventually you feel like you're plateauing, you feel like you're not making any progress. And that point's really dangerous, because it's at that point that often a lot of people will end up giving up and not moving on to becoming really good at test automation, which is a real shame because it's actually a false barrier. What you need to do at this level is to be able to push out of your comfort zone and get the extended experience, get a broader perspective of what you need to learn so that you can actually go beyond that step and start learning newer stuff and different stuff. And then you get to another stage. If you can get past that initial coding barrier, understanding how to code, understanding the fundamental language principles, becoming more confident in actually writing code, then you can start to understand how to write test scripts, how to use code to actually automate things. Because in its essence, coding is automation. And even if we do have low-code tools and no-code tools, you still need to understand the fundamentals of coding. It's just levels of abstraction. Coding is still the most powerful, the most flexible, the most robust way of automation, and it will stay that way. Even if we work at higher levels of abstraction, you still need to have that thinking. And once you get that thinking, if you can get past that barrier, you get to a level where you start to look at things like Selenium or Playwright or Cypress, where you're looking at test scripting. If you start that too early, you can run into trouble. If you go too fast here, you can run into trouble. If you don't have the fundamentals of coding, you can run into trouble. But at this level, the trouble is a little bit more subtle. And what often happens is people will stay at a very basic level of test scripting without actually knowing it. They'll stay on this plateau without realizing it, that they're on a plateau. And we have a name for that. We call that the expert beginner phenomenon. And what that means is that people think that they know test scripting. They'll even write blog posts, they'll even put posts on LinkedIn and whatnot and claim to know what they're talking about, but it's very dangerous because they only have a superficial level of understanding. They don't know what they don't know. They don't have the depth of experience to go further. And so listening to expert beginners for advice is a very dangerous thing. So this trap to avoid is really, really important when you get beyond the coding, and when you start to look at using scripting tools, writing test scripts. You need to understand how to go beyond that level of understanding test scripting and start to think of the bigger picture, to think of how to understand the requirements, how to understand what you need to automate, how to understand the value, how to prioritize, how to know what scenarios to automate, how to model your domain in a way that your automation will be scalable and flexible, and that you will have lower maintenance costs so that you can continue to automate in sprint and all of those good things that make up an agile software development engineer. And that's what you want to get to. So the two traps to avoid here are, once you're learning to code, you want to make sure you do understand the fundamentals and you continue growing in that area. And then when you're learning to script, make sure you don't plateau at that level where you only know the basic tooling, the basic test scripting. You can know 100 tools at a very basic level, it's not going to make you a great test automation engineer, and you'll still be struggling every time you write new test scripts. If you want to be able to write maintainable test scripts, write your own frameworks from scratch, build automation with confidence, be fast and confident in your automation, then that's where you need to get into this green level where you go beyond that stage. So what are some of the ways you can get through these barriers? One of the most important is regular, deliberate learning. Deliberate learning is the key. You've got to actually make sure you know what you're learning and why you're learning. Always push barriers, push boundaries. Get out of your comfort zone. Don't just learn the same thing over and over again. Also, you want to try and learn from experienced practitioners and be wary of expert beginners. Books, blogs, videos, or coaching programs like the Serenity Dojo program that I run. All of these things are good, but find a method that works for you. Make sure it works for you. And if it doesn't, don't hesitate to change. Finally, keep an eye on the bigger picture. Tooling is easy. Tooling is not the hard thing. Tools are easy to learn and understand when you have understood the fundamental coding skills and patterns. And tools and design patterns are easy to choose and easy to implement when you understand the requirements, the what and the why behind the how of automation. I hope these tips are useful. I hope you found these tips useful. If you have, check out my YouTube channel. I do a lot of videos like this where you can learn a lot more. Or if you want to have a chat about the Serenity Dojo program and how it might be able to help you learn test automation more effectively, feel free to reach out or click on the link below and we can have a conversation.